Good evening, everyone. I call to order the April 2019 legislative session of Media Borough Council. Please stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have a packed house. I believe that the audience tonight represents several different interests. Let's start off with something that we're going to take out of order on the agenda. We have the great privilege of elevating one of the members of our force to a different position, a sergeant position. And as we normally do, the mayor and the chief will join at the microphones, and they will introduce the issue.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a promotion within the police department. There's a lot of folks here. And J. Mac, I didn't know that you would have this much support. That's great. I'm really surprised that you folks know his nickname's Greenie, and you had shirts made up for this evening. That's unbelievable. I never would have thought that. That's awesome. That's what I like about this community, the thought that goes into things. In the back of the room, there's many officers here from the Media Borough Police Department. Raise your hands from ranks and file of Media Borough. The #1 department in the county. And there's also a great number of people from our neighboring agencies in Nether Providence Township and Upper Providence Township, tied for #2 in the county as far as police department. So we appreciate your attendance here tonight. Now it gives me great pleasure to bring our mayor up to swear in one of our officers to promotional rank of Sergeant, John McCormick. Mayor.
Repeat after me.
I, John McCormick,
Do upon solemn oath,
do upon solemn oath,
according to law, declare and say that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the Commonwealth
of the Commonwealth
of Pennsylvania,
of Pennsylvania,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
perform the duties
perform the duties
of Sergeant
of Sergeant
for the Borough of Media
for the Borough of Media
with fidelity.
with fidelity.
Here, here.
Now the bride will pin.
Don't go.
He's got his vest. That's muscle, that's no vest. Oh,
That's right. I'd just like to thank the council, Mayor McMahon, Chief Kucinich, for having the confidence and faith in me for this promotion. I promise I won't let you down. Looking around the room, I see officers from Media Borough, as the chief said, Nether Providence, Upper Providence. I'm sorry if I'm missing anyone, but I've learned so much from each and every one of you. I thank you for your support and your friendship throughout the years. You guys just really make this a great job to have and a great place to come to every day. Most importantly, though, my family who's given me the support over the years. My mom, Ellen, my dad, John, my father-in-laws, Mike and Jean, my mother-in-law, Bernadette, and most important, my daughter, Bree, my son, Colin, and my wife, Megan. They're my rock, and I wouldn't be here without them today with all their support. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're going home.
Real quickly, if you don't mind. I would like to say a few words. Just real quickly, I don't think the fact of the matter is you don't know what I know. I've been doing this for a long time in media. you have to be, I'm very proud of being able to work with such quality people. And I've always said that in the past. The men and women of the Media Police Department are the best. We set the bar high when we do hiring, etc. Anyone in our department, everyone should be promoted in some form or fashion. It's very difficult when we go through these times for the council to make judgments on who to promote and who not, because it's very thin line between how great each individual within the department is. And I'm just very happy, and I can assure you, the residents of media, that you have the greatest people and are the greatest police officers. They're very well educated, highly trained, motivated, dedicated to the T, polite, calm. I mean, it's just everything, every adjective you can come up with positive, I'm telling you, they're there. Once in a while you might get in a bad mood, and that's, you hear about a cop talk to somebody in a mean fashion, it's probably me. But as far as the men and women in our department, they all deserve the rank above I. And I don't know if the council, I know you folks had a difficult scenario in not only the last promotional, but also in our recent hirings. So we're very fortunate to be able to present you with candidates for our police department, regardless of rank and file, that are tremendous people.
And I think that's and Chief, I think that the word difficult is an apt word to describe the decision process that council went through. We had 3 excellent candidates. That's a luxury that many municipalities do not have. It was a difficult choice for us to make. It took us several sessions to make that decision, and that was because we had 3 excellent candidates to choose from. So we welcome J-Mac Sargent, and we look forward to seeing him in the stripes on the streets.
Thank you, J-Mac.
Now is the opportunity for folks, if they wish to take photographs, to do so. And after a few minutes of smiling and gripping and grinning, then we can repair to the foyer, and we'll take a few minutes break from the camera.
Yeah.
To do that.
Thank you. Thanks to council for your time. Thanks to the audience for your applause. The men and women of your police department deserve them. Thank you.
Here. For those of you who are watching at home, we took a short break. We had a ceremony to begin tonight's meeting. The ceremony was for now Sergeant John McCormick. He has been elevated by council from position control officer to sergeant, and he took the oath of his new office just a few minutes ago. So congratulations to him and to his family. Where we left off with the approval of the meeting minutes. So let's take care of some housekeeping matters. First item is workshop meeting minutes from March of 2019. Do I hear a motion to approve them as submitted?
So moved.
Is there a second? There is. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the March 7, 2019 workshop meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. A similar motion concerning the council meeting minutes from this past month. Do I hear a motion to approve those as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the March 21, 2019 council meeting minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Before I move along to public comment and privilege of the floor, it is my duty to announce that at the end of our council meeting on our most recent workshop meeting earlier this month, we met in executive session to discuss 3 personnel matters, one of which you saw come to its conclusion this evening. And 2, I suspect you're also going to have, also will be coming to conclusion this evening. All right, so the public comment privilege of the floor. So those of you who are watching at home, you might not get a sense of it, but we do have a packed house. Now, with a packed house, keeping in mind that this is our business session, and we do try to be efficient in what we do with our business session, If you wish to come forward, and if you are talking about the same subject matter, I ask that you be concise and try to limit the amount of repeated comments on the same topic. I assure you that we are listening, and if one person says it, there's no need for two or more to say the same thing. So please come forward. Tell us your name, where you live, what's on your mind.
My name is Abby Weiser. I live at 423 North Jackson Street, and I've been asked to present the petition for Keep Media Green. The petition states, "We, the undersigned residents of Media, PA, call on Media Borough Council to prioritize the preservation of 45 acres of contiguous green open space in Western Media. Recognizing that the 33-acre Glen Providence Park is currently zoned as municipal, educational, recreational, and community, that is MERC, we support expansion of the MERC zone to include the 12-acre Broomall's Tract. The MERC zone expansion would permanently protect the 45 acres of contiguous green open space that forms a single ecological unit of unique natural beauty, wildlife habitat, and woodlands. 2, ensure that the land in the new MERC zone will continue to be used for recreational use in perpetuity. And 3, allow for Broomall's Lake Country Club to continue to own and operate its private recreational facility, but not permit housing development on the tract. Toward these ends, we call on the Media Borough Council to use its lawful municipal power to rezone the Broomall's Tract from residential R2, R3 to municipal, educational, recreational, and community." I want to add that as I carried our petition from house to house and talked with my neighbors, I heard one concern over and over. Media is being built up much too fast and much too much. People in all parts of town are mourning the loss of green space, the loss of trees that are being cut down, and the loss of the peacefulness of their neighborhoods. If this goes on, media won't be media anymore. The small town character of our borough, the very things that bring people here and keep them here, are being destroyed by overdevelopment. There are more than 550 signatures from media residents on this petition. Very few people refused to sign. In fact, most were very eager to sign, not just to preserve Glen Providence and the green space at the west end of town, but also to preserve green space throughout the town. These signatures are a protest against the relentless development going on in media, against the wishes of the majority of residents.
My name is Terry Rumsey, 342 West 4th Street, here in the borough. I'm the co-coordinator of Keep Media Green, along with my partner in marriage and organizing, Robin Lasserson. Keep Media Green's a new media nonprofit. It already has 335 members. And I noticed a lot of people are wearing green tonight. It's not an Eagles rally, although maybe it's appropriate because Councilman Johnson told me that she recently saw a bald eagle on the western woods of Media. And so maybe it is an Eagles rally. I wanted to say too, happy Earth Day to the members of council and also to everybody in the audience. I actually am aware that most of the country and the world will be celebrating Earth Day on Monday, the 22nd of April, but we decided we wanted to celebrate it here tonight. And that's because since 1970, when Earth Day first was introduced, there's been a kind of a drift to it becoming a ceremonial day where you plant a tree, which is nice, and then there's speeches and there's, you know, maybe some photo opportunities. But anyone who knows about the roots of Earth Day know that it was about passionate and urgent citizen action, taking a call to elected officials to take concrete, practical action to protect our land, our streams, and our air. And we think it's appropriate because that's what this night is about. That's why we think we're celebrating Earth Day. Because we're coming here to ask you to do something really simple and practical, which is to prevent any housing development from going on the 12 acres Borough tract. But more than that, prevent any possibility of a housing development. So it's not just stop the housing development, it's stop the possibility. As long as it's zoned residential, it's under threat from what happened back in the 60s when that institution sold to a housing developer, and there's a housing development that used to be a part of the property on the north end now. So we are here to ask and have Borough Council consider doing something very simple to protect a treasure here, the last unprotected open space in this borough. I would also like to ask each one of the council members and ask President Hall if he would share the petition with everyone, with Sarah, with Peter, with Kevin, with the mayor, but with Amy, Lisa, and Paul. And I would ask you to actually read the names and addresses of the more than 550 borough residents. Because I think, one, you're going to see your neighbors, not just your neighborhood, but people on your street. You're going to see educators. You're going to see people of all faiths, of all colors, every neighborhood, all 4 precincts, but every neighborhood in those precincts. You're going to see members of the school board, members of the planning commission. You're going to see the heart and blood. So I would ask you, really, don't just look at the stack of papers or the mass of signatures. Please read the names and addresses so you can see who it is that supported. I mean, we got 550, and that was all volunteer. We probably could have got 1,000, truthfully, if we had, a little more time. So the other thing I'd like to say before I sit down is that I think you have a unique opportunity. Often it's easy here to do something that is popular. It's always harder to do something that's principled. But we know that you guys do that. And of course, you always need to do something that's possible. In this case, you have the chance to do something where the 3 P's align. Something that's principled, that's possible because you have the power to rezone, but it's also popular. So really, this is the perfect storm in terms of being a council member, because you can do all 3 of those 3 things. I do want to be honest, sometimes you get accused in these kind of things of being a NIMBY, not in my backyard. And I live about 100 feet from the property line on this Brummel's tract. In fact, we bought our house because of the beauty of that neighborhood. That was the #1 reason that we purchased, just low twin, high price tag by our standards. But that's why we bought it. So I'm not going to pretend that it's not NIMBY. And in fact, we got really strong support from the neighborhoods immediately surrounding that. But if you look at those petitions, you will see in everybody's hometown, the western woods of Media is everybody's backyard. Okay, so the last thing I would like to ask a question, which is, we were excited to notice that Councilman Williamson is going to present about an open space plan tonight. And we were wondering, are we going to get a chance to ask questions during that period, or are we going to have to wait till the very end when privilege of the floor is open again?
Well, so certainly now would be the time to ask those questions.
Well, it hasn't presented yet, so can't ask questions yet.
I think you were present at a workshop meeting. I know that you asked some questions at that time. You also have received some information about the open space plan, so this is not something that is new to you.
Right.
Are there additional questions that you'd like to ask
Well,
us now?
I mean, there's a few other people here. So I'm just wondering, when do we have to wait? It's a question.
Now would be the time to ask questions.
At the end. I'm not going to ask until I hear the full report.
It might be good for those people that are going to come up and speak. There seems to be a line. If you have questions about the open space plan that I'm going to talk about, perhaps you could just ask it, and then I'll be sure to talk about it to the best of my ability when I introduce it that way. Those
Okay,
folks
fair
that don't
enough.
want to stay through the
Thank you.
meeting can.
All right, so I'll ask one question. In the open space planning, Peter, it's correct that there's going to be an RFP, go out to hire someone who will lead the process. Two questions. Will the public be able to sit on some kind of body, do you think?
Yes.
Okay. And I know the details will merge. The second, I know that it's not going to be exclusively about the property that's the subject of the petition, but will the Brummels tract be part of the open discussion of this process?
Yes, it absolutely would have to. It's one of the single largest pieces of open space left in the borough, so of course.
Thank you.
Robin Lasserson, 342 West 4th Street. I'd like to talk about how rezoning the Brummels tract from residential to Merck could defend the interests of 4 stakeholder groups. The first is the plants and animals that live there on that 12 acres of woods. It's their home. And it's their home in an area where open green space is becoming smaller and smaller, rarer and rarer. And the critters don't know that there's a boundary at 3rd Street. To them, the park and the Brummels tract are one green corridor, one ecosystem. And I am asking you to prioritize that ecosystem, prioritize ecology. And I believe that it is, in fact, the moral obligation of every elected official or public servant on this planet at this point in human history to prioritize ecology. So please model that. The second group are park users. I think we'd all agree that Glen Providence Park is a gem. It's been made even more beautiful than it already was by the hard work of Friends of Glen Providence Park. It's a rare thing for a town about a mile big to share a 33-acre park. Unfortunately, over the last 20 years, it's been hemmed in by housing development. There is now housing development on the east side, the southeast side, and the west side. And that erodes the quality of the park experience for people who spend time there. There is now, I don't think, there is virtually no spot in that park where you can't look up and see evidence of the built environment now. And that is compromising to the quality of the park experience. And it's no disrespect to the people who live in those houses. I get it, they're desirable, but could we say enough is enough and act now to prevent yet another housing development on the north side, which would result in the complete surrounding of Glen Providence Park. The third stakeholder group, Terry alluded to, it's the neighbors in the western edge of town. For those of us who are lucky enough to live right there adjacent to or nearby to those woods, it permeates the atmosphere all the time, from the bird song that wakes me up in the morning to the beautiful sunsets behind that tree line. It is the most cherished thing about that neighborhood, and let's not ruin it by failing to act when we can. The fourth constituency is the entire community. I too have talked to literally hundreds of people in this town over the last 8 weeks, and as Abby alluded to, there's a theme that emerged, and that is, and it was powerful, it was palpable, and that is that this town is at risk of losing the things that make it special. And I think there is an opportunity here for this council to respond to that concern, to be proactive rather than reactive, to be bold rather than to be timid, and to take direct responsibility for making the necessary change, not to assume that everything will probably be okay, or to assume that another entity, like the zoning hearing board, might take a stand so that you don't need to. But putting recent actions that have been taken on this issue aside, just looking forward, I am here to ask you to prioritize the ecology and to act in the interests of the plants and animals, the park users, the neighbors in the west, and the entire town of Media Borough, and act to rezone the Broomall's Tract from residential to commercial. Thank you.
Hi, I'm James Lutaris, and I live at 681 West 3rd Street in Media. This is hard for me to get up here and speak, so I'm going to do my best, Brian, and not repeat anything that anyone said. And Paul, I will try to be brief. With Earth Day around the corner, I would like to take a moment to thank this council for what Media Borough has done in the past 10 to 15 years to support the environment. You launched a composting pilot program in 2018. You rehabilitated Hootman Park. You've received a certificate of excellence awarded by the Clean Air Council for the borough's commitment to purchasing 20% clean energy. You adopted the Media Borough Stormwater Master Plan in August of 2017, which takes a big picture approach to addressing storm water runoff, as well as flooding and related environmental problems in Media. And you took so many other important environmental actions, too numerous to mention here, but they are listed on the EIC page of the Borough website, and it's a very impressive list. So I want to thank this council for everything you've done. And that you continue to do. In addition to the accomplishments I just shared, please let part of your legacy be that you preserve the western woods of Media. I appeal to you now to continue with your solid track record of environmental practices and seize this opportunity to have a long-term positive effect on the community by rezoning the 12-acre Broomall's Tract back to Merck and preserving it for future generations of animals and people. I am a member of BLCC, and I am deeply disappointed that the leadership has declined to cooperate with Council's commendable efforts to come up with a win-win solution for the club and the community. Sadly, the club's leadership does not seem to recognize the long-term value that their beautiful wooded property has in our community. They've chosen not to explore alternative ways to raise funds for the club and believe that selling off part of their land to building developers or borrowing against its value as a housing development is their only hope for survival. This is unfortunate. It frustrates me that the lack of creative problem solving and flexibility of a few has the potential to destroy a valuable ecosystem and negatively impact our town. Sayer, Lisa, Kevin, Paul, Peter, Amy, and Brian. What would you do about this rezoning issue if you were to take action from a place of pure inspiration rather than fear of retaliation or legal costs? I ask that you please stand firm and don't let another potential lawsuit threat from BLCC intimidate and discourage you from rezoning the Broomall's Tract. I hope you will do what you believe is best for the community and the environment. I am counting on this progressive-minded council to think bigger and broader than the leadership of BLCC is willing to, and protect the 12-acre Broomall's Tract by rezoning it to Merck.
Paul Sheldon, 443 West Baltimore Avenue.
Directly behind our little row house is beautiful Glen Providence Park. Directly in front of us is the hot West End. We have the West End Flats, we have West End Walk, and other things. And occasional traffic jams, as you're all aware. Well, we have a lot of new people in media, and they came to media because they know media is a wonderful place. It's a nice place to be, but we don't want to be a nice place when everybody comes to it, that suddenly it becomes not quite such a nice place. We have, and I'm thinking really of the new people, I want to take a positive look to all the development and growth we have there. They have come here for the real media that was here as they arrived. That media is somewhat being threatened, I do believe. We have here, and I think for all the newcomers, and for the future of media, for all the people who will be coming here in the future, children and grandchildren of those present, we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to keep media green. A once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Do it now. Thank you.
Paul Indoor, 339 West 4th Street. And so that's right there by the swim club, but this is not an NB thing. I have three very simple points. I'm glad Mr. Scott isn't here because I understand everything's more complicated. It's a simple thing. The first thing is, if it looks like a duck and it squawks like a duck and it looks like a duck, it's a duck. Okay? The swim club's a merc. It always has been. I don't know why it was ever zoned R2 to begin with. Maybe there's some history there that could contribute to this whole thing. But it's clearly, when you look at it, what's going on there is recreation. It's what it is. As much as when you go up 4th Street, that's R2, because there are duplexes there. You know, and when you go on the west end of town, that's industrial, because there's industry there. So that's one thing. Another thing is, you know, I shared at the workshop meeting, I thought it was a real shame. I said it was an injustice that you guys had been sued personally. And it comes to me that this is just not how we do business in this town. I mean, I would hope it's not the way that we do business anywhere, okay? And, you know, to sue the Borough Incorporated, I mean, I understand that's probably all part of the process. But to go after you guys individually, and especially knowing several of you as well as I do, there's not a vindictive bone in anybody I see up there. And so it's a cheap shot, it's a low blow, and it's just not the way we do business around here. And so please don't let them get away with it. The swim club, in quotes, is not who's making all this trouble. It's a small number of people who have gotten a majority on the board who push this forward. I would say, if nothing else, we got them outnumbered. And so you will be supported in your efforts to come to a fair outcome on this. The other thing is, it's part of the brand of the town. Standing under the stars, everybody's hometown, green community. It's just media. Thanks.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Joe Leach. I live at 305 South Lemon Street, proud resident of the West End. I'm going to talk to members just for a minute.
Speak into the mic.
Okay. This is from a Delco Times article in 2018. Delaware County has the lowest percentage of open space of the 9 southeast PA counties at 10.4%. Philadelphia has 13.6%. Camden County has 20.9%. Okay, the average percentage of green space, open space in Pennsylvania is 24.4%. Now, I understand there's a lot of rural property in there, and, you know, numbers are numbers. Further, the article notes that most of this 12,675 acres that comprises the 10.4% in Delco was designated by the state, mostly designated by the state, private foundations, and townships. Mostly and especially not Delco Council. Zero. Okay, and I'm talking about bonds, things like that. And I want to contrast it to a neighbor in Westchester Council's direct involvement in saving 50,000 acres. Okay, you're talking a big number. Okay, there are indications that the winds are changing locally. Okay, and the biggest example I can bring up is Middletown, our neighborhood, and their negotiations for the Elwyn property. I say, go get it, and I hope it works. Finally, I just wanted to mention that the upshot is that the county and local municipalities need to step up, okay? You're not going to get an opportunity like this every week, every year, maybe ever again, okay? It's your turn at bat. You now have the petition. The question is, what will be your response to the concerned citizens of Media Borough? The time is now not just to study, but to act. We've had enough development. We want green space. We need it. Please do the right thing. Thank you.
It's looking like my family talking. Okay. That works. Linda Healy, 119 West 7th Street. The people here today are not only borough residents. They are Pennsylvania citizens, the named beneficiaries of the trust created by the Environmental Rights Amendment. Article 1, Section 27 of the Pennsylvania Constitution provides as follows. The people have a right to clean air, pure water, and to the preservation of the natural, scenic, historic, and aesthetic values of the environment. Pennsylvania's public natural resources are the common property of all the people, including generations yet to come. As trustee of these resources, the Commonwealth shall conserve and maintain them for the benefit of all people. A ruling by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court in 2017 went on to say that the trustee obligation is shared by all agencies and entities of the Commonwealth government, both statewide and local. Please protect our community's green space with the prudence, loyalty, and impartiality required by the Supreme Court decision. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting. My name is Patrick Ryan. I live on Lemon Street. I've lived in Media my whole life. In fact, I was born right by Rose Street Park, littered by my father here in these lands. My father is an oral surgeon who does so much for people and for the community and for our family. And I grew up with my mother right around there. She loves the environment. Dad loves medicine. My mom loves the environment. And I tried to leave Media before. Flew to Puerto Rico and came back, went to the Hawaiian Islands and came back. Actually bought land in Hawaii because I wanted to be closer to nature. But something brought me back here, community, and this community that loves nature. And the business, and the nature of business in nature doesn't feel like community to me if we're not in our hearts with nature. So I flew out to Hawaii. I decided I got to come back. The police department's not as good out there. True story. Cities and these large places can breed things like methamphetamines and drugs because we don't have nature. I came back from Hawaii and I had a daughter. She's 9 months old. She lives right with me, right by that park and that window I look out. I am one of those houses that's on there, but I was there a while ago for a reason. My heart stays the same for a reason. I live here for a reason. We're community. We're not brick and mortar businesses everywhere. We have nature in our heart. I want my daughter to grow up and see the things I saw. And thank you. I love you all.
That was the best comment of the night, by the way.
I'm going to repeat that.
Fire sunshine.
Charlie Randall, 326 West 5th Street. My background is in, academic background is in geology. I am very concerned about water quality. With the 400-acre watershed that the DEP said supplies the 3rd Street Dam, a very large percentage of that is impervious area. Roads, roofs, driveways, which means when it rains, everything goes down the storm so fast. That's not good for a creek. People like to have nice looking lawns. They use chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers. All of that severely degrades the ecosystem of the creek and the little pond in the park. I would really like to see not just the prohibition of building in that wetland and the hillside next to it, but any new buildings in the borough immediately. But that's beyond this one. That's just my opinion. So I am concerned about water quality. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Don't cry, Brian, this is short. My name's Marcella Tate, Brian, these guys don't know me. This is short and sweet. Everything that everybody said is wonderful. We all love living here in media. I was in the park today with our Representative Quinn, planting a tree. He wanted to help out for Arbor Day, so we were planting a tree. So we did that, and we had a great conversation. Now, anybody that knows me knows I'm a bleeding heart liberal. And Mr. Quinn is a Republican, and we had a fabulous conversation because we were trying to find things that we both agreed on. And the interesting thing is that we agreed on a lot. And so what I'd like to do is just let's look at what's going on here today and say, how can we agree? What can we bring together and come up with a great solution? Because let's face it, nobody wants somebody to come in and tell them how they should run their property. I think everybody has a little issue with that. But my question is this a residential property? Are they zoned residential?
Yes, we're most like Country Club is zoned.
Okay, I live right up the street from there. I can see that. I'm zoned residential. I can't have a swimming pool like that or a swim club in my backyard. How is that? Huh? I don't have the room. But if I did, how does that, how did that happen? So that's just my question. I don't understand that.
I think it pre-existed our zoning code.
Room house has been there prior to any zoning, any written zoning in the borough. So yes. So when zoning became paper and pen, then it has been zoned as long as I've lived here, which is my entire life, that residential area, because it surrounded it. Merck itself has only been something that's been around probably 20 years. So prior to that, there was only the four districts. So that's how it got zoned.
It just seems so crazy. But thank you all for listening to us, for being here, for putting up with this. And it's a job that you guys have, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
I am Donna Bumbar, 401 West State Street, and 20 years ago I was corporate world. Things happened, and I moved back home to media, shattered about 3 years ago. Rescued a dog, he rescued me, and I found myself down the park. And what I started to learn, and I didn't know it before, was that at the Borough Lake, prior to it being drained, I would notice all these ducks. And I love nature, but I was never too much into all that I cared about ducks. But I started going there every day, I had to walk the dog. And I started realizing that they would migrate there and then go down to the pond as mates. Because I actually counted the ducks, and I realized they were paired up. They're dead. They're gone. They don't come this year. One of the things that amazed me were the bullfrogs. It was like an orchestra. They had baritones. It was beautiful. And the dragonflies, they're gone last year. There are some turtles this year coming back. There are the carps. We have carps down there like this. But what really impressed me was about 2 weeks ago, there was a soccer team. I was going down during sunset with my dog, as I always do, and I noticed these kids. They were cleaning up. Parents had food on the picnic tables. And I don't know, about 20 or so kids. And I left them alone and took my dog down to a pond. And as we were coming back up, there was this young boy, about 9 or 10, and he was so excited. He was, "Dad, this is awesome. I've never been down here before. Can we come back?" And I started to talk to him because we had a couple turtles, and I showed him the car. And that's what it's about. It's about life being so stressed out, and yet you can go down there and be in heaven. It's a great educational tool for children if teachers want to take them down on a field trip. But to see how excited these children were to clean it up, and it made me real happy. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. If anybody else who wishes to comment on this particular item, my thought process is this: there are an awful lot of folks wearing green shirts here today, and we don't want to keep you here until 10:30 at night. I'm sure that you'd probably join us in that sentiment. The thought process is this: once we get to the end of comments on this issue, perhaps we can take this motion out of turn. Peter, you can address the issue of the open space plan, and that way, at least some of you can go home at a reasonable hour, and others are meant to be with us for the duration. All right, so.
My name is David Palmer. I live at 402 North Olive Street. I can't even begin to approach the eloquence of some of the folks who've spoken on this subject this evening, so I won't try. I support completely what they're trying to do. Something that I wondered about, and I want to throw it out there for everybody to think about because it would cost a whole boatload of money. Why doesn't the borough buy the property, and then we can have a community swimming pool, and that can be owned by the borough in perpetuity? I have no idea what the machinations to do that would be. I'm sure it's impressive, but it's just the first thought.
David, you mentioned a boatload of money. We're looking for the boat.
And David, with all due respect, up here, right here, must be this microphone. Everyone always looks in the back. Statistics show that municipal swim clubs are very expensive, and the vast majority of them fail.
Oh, well, I know of a lot of them that haven't, and it's one of those things, okay, just because something hasn't worked somewhere else doesn't mean it can't work here. I think media is a very special place, and I think that we certainly would get enough community assistance to keep it running. But we're never going to know unless we try. Just saying, that can't work, well, yeah, it's not going to work. So I think it's worth exploring.
An idea that this group may want to think about exploring, because I'm impressed with the amount of people, the amount of excitement. But what I heard tonight was, there's a group that's very excited. You're a 501c3. You seem to have more than just a core of people that are interested. Why don't you look to fundraise, put the program together yourselves, and keep media green? Let you purchase the club. No, but see, as soon as it's brought on to somebody else, it's easy to walk in here, with all due respect, and tell the borough to go spend the money. It's not, we're all in this together. All right, but that's what I'm trying to say. There's an opportunity.
It's a point of order. I'm making my comment, okay? All right. I'm not telling the borough to do anything. I made a suggestion that the council is here, the citizens are here, and so that can start getting kicked around. So that's a slightly different
shade of pink than what you're discussing.
Just
My
saying
next
the
question is, this particular comment time, is that just concerning the green space?
Sure seems to be that way, doesn't it?
But is that? I mean, I have something else I want to ask.
So no, it's not.
Okay, the Plum Street Mall, so far as I know, is a public area, isn't it?
It's a public street.
It's a public street. And I remember when it was Seven Stones, they had tables out there, and there was some kerfuffle over them trying to tell people that the tables were only for customers of Seven Stones. And that seems to have abided. I noticed today that Jocko Taco has, they're very nice signs. I mean, they spent pretty good money having them made. But they have tables out there and the signs saying, just for customers of Jocko's Tacos. Now, if they're paying rent to the borough, that might be a different thing. But if that's a public space, I don't understand how if you want to put tables out there for people to sit at, thank you very much, that's very nice for the community. But I don't understand whether they can preclude people who haven't bought one of their tacos from sitting.
To my knowledge, they do not have permission to do that. We will raise this with our code enforcement officer. He will look into it and he will advise us on what approach he thinks we should take. But thank you. You're an excellent observer of Plum Street.
Thank you. Why I want to live here, and everybody just keep fighting.
I'd just like to make a quick comment. My name is Fred Shamlian. My advertising agency is on the corner of 3rd and Holiday. One of the things that struck me just now is that when David was speaking, there was a little in the room when he talked about the pool. What struck me when I was down in that space recently, before I encountered the Keep Media Green, which I signed, was just the larger question that struck me as a creative guy saying, God, this could be the most amazing space for media. Just like we would be so happy to come here together every night. And if we got together and started imagining, like, what would this be? And I want to step back from that because the larger question is, you know, you look at the incredible monolith, the institutional parking lot and offices that are now going to go up by the courthouse. I understand that somebody determined that need and so forth, but in Norway, there's a power plant that's also a ski. You can ski down it, and during the summer you can ride your go-karts down it, and it's the most powerful, clean plant in the world. My point is that imagination was applied at that. Somebody said, what's the maximum value that we can get from that as a community? And they delivered on that. And I feel that media's brand, there's so many creative people in this town. And I think what this represents, what Keep Media Green, I mean, Keep Media Green is essential in itself, but looking at this larger picture, the idea that we as a community can come together and decide on our future and create it for ourselves. I think a lot of people in the Tuesday night meeting I attended said they're taking this away from us. But if we assume a more empowering mindset about what we choose to give ourselves, I think the opportunity as our town to really become what we want to be is greatly increased. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mo Rumsey Lasterson, 342 West 4th Street. Some of you may think that I'm perhaps overly biased to talk about this particular issue. I did grow up with a few...
my experience of my daughters.
Well, then that speaks to my parents' principles. I grew up looking at the park. I grew up catching tiny, tiny frogs there and walking the dogs there. I grew up taking the children who I babysat to the country club and sunbathing with them and playing in the pool with them. I guess I have I have two questions for council, one very technical and one less so. My technical question is, do we explain to me because I'm very young, do we currently zone property according to its use, or is there other criteria? is there a short answer to what that other criteria is?
I can take a stab at it. Zoning is sort of it's two things. It's a reflection of the existing built community in any area. It's also a recipe book for how the community believes the rest of the community should be developed. So you take the example of a suburban township that has a lot more open space in media. They'll have a big residential zone and they may have an industrial zone. They have every municipality in Pennsylvania, this is an important point for everybody to know, has to include every possible land use in its zoning categories. You can't exclude anything. So media has an industrial zone. Media has a place for adult entertainment because we have to have everything in this town. It's in the industrial district, by the way. With a bunch of other overlays. But my point is, let me go back. My point is, it's a recipe book for how a community is supposed to develop. But there's all sorts of case law built up in Pennsylvania about how to do it properly and how to do it improperly. Because as you can imagine, which this case illustrates very well, there's a tremendous financial implication to the zone chosen. So, for instance, you can build more stuff along Baltimore Pike in media than you can build on 8th Street. You know, you can build something denser there because it makes more sense because of the way this community developed. So a square foot of ground on Baltimore Pike is worth more than a square foot of ground on 8th Street. So because of that, the courts have engaged for years about how to do it properly.
Sure, yes. Thank you for that explanation. I think that in terms of that question, this issue is actually, while the particulars might be complicated, relatively simple, despite what history may say, whether it's been 20 years that the property has been zoned one way or another. But I think that the responsibility of the council feels fairly apparent to me, and I think you all understand what my position on that will be. From the more personal perspective, as I said, I grew up near to the park, and touching on my parents' values again, something other than the worth of nature and natural beauty that was important in my home was the possibility of meaningful and principled democracy, and the belief that one of the ethical motivation for entering politics is to do the right thing. Unfortunately, I don't know if that's always the case, but I have a lot of faith in this particular body and in the community of this town. And I think that this is, in that sense, an appeal. I turned 26 today.
Big birthday party.
Yeah, so this is my birthday party. And that tells you something about how much I care about this. But what I'm asking is that you be the role models that I think that you can be. That's it.
Thank you. Unless there are any other questions, we'll kind of segue over to Peter Williamson. But before we do, just so we have the opportunity to toot our horn a little bit, Jane mentioned a number of things that the borough has been able to accomplish over the past years. You did not mention that over the past couple of years, we have established 3 pocket parks. So we have been attempting, we understand our most recent comprehensive plan that the number one, or certainly among the top concerns of media residents, is open space. That's something that we have been working on. So I'd like just to toot that horn for a moment. And also there's some concern expressed about trees and trees coming down. I think that you'll find that the borough has a very aggressive tree replacement program. A lot of the trees you're seeing coming down now are coming down because our Shade Tree Commission has told us that they are sick, and that if we don't take care of them now in a controlled fashion, we will be dealing with them in an uncontrolled fashion. I think many of us remember what happened to the house on West 7th Street over this past winter, and we'd like to avoid that type of a situation. But Peter, the floor is yours. And this, for those folks who have an agenda, this is item number 2 under F, the second page.
I'm a conservation professional. It's my job. I work for an organization called Natural Lands. I've done it for 30 years. So much of what you talked about tonight is very dear to my heart. So thank you for being so eloquent. Recently, I guess it was about 18 months ago, the borough decided to purchase a piece of property on 5th Street, near Borough Street. And when I became aware of the fact that it was available, I went directly to our planning documents to see if there was anything that was said about park acquisition in the borough. And we have a fairly recent comprehensive plan. And luckily for me, it did say that the borough should seek to acquire additional parkland in the northwestern portion of the borough and the southeastern portion of the borough. But that's about all it said in specifics. And it was useful enough to provide some rationale for the 50% of the acquisition cost we received from the state of Pennsylvania through a grant. That was sufficient, but for us as a body, it was insufficient to do additional planning. We like to plan here. Stormwater plan was mentioned before, so that's sort of our 20-year plan on how to improve stormwater in the borough. We'd like the same thing for open space because we hear you. Quality of life is both, a quality home and a quality outside, and I believe that very much so. The mention of the geographer's mention of all the water quality issues associated with impervious surface, I understand all that. But we're a very built place, so we have to be very careful about the open space we choose. And it's not always about buying it. Sometimes it's about how we regulate how people use the land they have so that the outcome, the environmental benefits are produced. So our intention tonight is to, and in fact I guess I'll make it a motion when I finish my remarks, is to advertise for a professionally accomplished open space plan that would consider the entire borough. You can do a lot of different things with an open space plan, so I'm just going to read to you the 6 objectives, so bear with me so you get a sense of what we're going to try to do. Conduct a recreational needs assessment. Recognize that this open space plan is also a recreational plan. There's a lot of people that live here that use our Recreation Commission's offerings on a regular basis. We have to consider both things when we look at this issue. Conduct a recreational needs assessment to include the general citizenry, organized community groups, government, and the private sector. Root the planning process in vigorous public involvement. To your point, Terry, there will be a steering committee selected that will include citizens and members of appropriate boards and commissions. Build upon the comprehensive plan and other existing plans. Minimize new data collection by using existing materials. Focus on communication, strategizing, and plan formulation. Let me do a sidebar. This was based on the state's standard scope for open space plans. The state has a process for giving out grants to communities that want to do these plans, but they want you to follow their recipe. It's a good recipe. It's been honed over decades of use. So I'm happy with it, and we just modified it a little bit for this process. Undertake a level of service analysis for parks and recreational facilities that is based on the strengths, challenges, and opportunities particular to the borough. It will include assessment of program offerings for scheduled and self-directed opportunities for people of all ages. Again, recreation is included. Develop a clear community vision for the recreational system. Create a mission statement describing how community organizations will work together to achieve the vision. Provide recommendations on new park locations, sidewalk and bikeways. And both community sidewalks and the street is essentially a system of linear parks for us. Note the difference between when a big street tree goes down in your neighborhood, how different it is. I used to live on West 4th Street. Remember the big oak trees? It's so different. Okay. New park locations, sidewalks, and bikeways, including configuration, facilities, enhancements, access, etc. And lastly, create a prioritized strategy which achieves the recommendations, maximizes limited financial resources and staff, takes advantage of available state implementation funding, and deters duplication of services. Will identify recommended partnerships to establish strong collaboration for plan implementation. It will also include a financial strategy, recommending a mix of public and non-public resources to develop, maintain, and manage the system. I think we'll be very happy with this when we're done. And I think it will provide a framework for additional significant investments that this Borough Council, and I'm sure future ones, will want to make in our open space here at our recreational system, because it's very much one of the reasons why people come and love it here. So that's, I guess. Make a motion?
I'll take that in the form of a motion. How's that?
So moved. I mean, that's my motion.
Is there a second on the motion? Is there a second on the motion? Is there any discussion on the motion? It seems as we've been discussing this for at least an hour.
Well, I
Any
just
further
want to say,
discussion on the motion?
I just want to say one word or two. That I'm thrilled with the show of support that all of you are showing tonight on expanding and protecting our green space here in media. I fully support the efforts of Keep Media Green. I think it's wonderful. And I look forward to participating in the process that Peter just described with all of you in some form or fashion, so we can ensure that we have ongoing green open space in media. Thanks a lot.
May I add one other thing? Yes. I forgot. I have to mention to you that this is a very good time to do this, not only for the borough itself, but for Delaware County, believe it or not. Okay? For the first time, okay, back in the 1990s, every single suburban county voted up or down whether they wanted to borrow money to save open space. 3 did, 1 didn't. This one didn't. So it has not had a formal open space program while Chester County was busy saving 50,000 acres. It put $10 million into the general operating budget this year for an open space program. I would go to county council and tell them how pleased you are, because it's remarkable. And they haven't spent any of it yet. They haven't set up the program yet. If you went to county council and encouraged them to spend that money, to start implementing the program, my goodness gracious, then the borough will not only have its own monies to use and state monies to use, but it could have county monies to leverage as well.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to echo what Lisa had to say, and I'm feeling very appreciative for this group that's sitting in front of me, of intelligent, respectful, and active citizens. It takes a lot of courage to get up and say what you all had to say. You've given me a lot to think about, and I'm very hopeful that many of you will participate in the open space plan and the process that Peter reviewed. So thank you.
Are there any other comments before I call the question? I'll just add this one comment. When we begin our financial planning, we run a calendar year basis. We begin our financial planning in September of each year. The money that the open space plan will likely cost us is reflected in the budget that we began putting together in September of this past year. So this is not some last minute notion that we're thinking of. This was a part of our budget that was, preliminary budget was passed in November, and the final budget was passed in December. So it's already a budgeted item. All right, so I'll call the question. All those in favor of authorizing the advertisement of request for proposals for the creation of an open space plan for Media Borough, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say nay. The motion passed unanimously. Well, it's been a hard day's night. And we're not even brushing the surface of our agenda. So what I'd like to do is, if you're here for this particular issue and you think that now is a good time for you to get back to loved ones, this is a good time to do it. You will not make us feel bad if you get up out of your seat and walk out the door. If you prefer to stay here because you don't really care to hear what the Six are doing tonight, then please stay with us for the rest of the evening.
I've been media, I've been a resident here for my entire life. And I have an issue, and I'd like to talk to it so it doesn't carry on through the borough. I'd like to know why at the West End, flats as everybody's calling, is a sign that says the West End District. Media isn't districts, media is precincts. So why are you trying to bring more Philadelphia in here? With districts now, you're already trying to make it a little mini.
So, Ms. Gaston, I can answer your question because I do have an answer for that. It certainly was not in an effort to emulate Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a fine, wonderful place, and I don't mind that on occasion we do try to emulate Philadelphia. There are many good things to be had there. The term West End District came out of our wayfinding signage program. There was a report that was passed 3 years ago, Jeff, 2015. You'll find it on our website. And that was after a long public process. We had many people come to us. It was a process that was led by a consulting group called Merge. And the idea was to rationalize the signage in the borough so that folks, particularly folks who are from outside the borough, could more easily find places within the borough. It's not always an easy, media is small, and it's not always easy to find your way around.
There's a big sign down there.
Sure.
And that approved. But
Yes.
I don't want to see it continue through the town with being districts. It bothers me. I'm a media resident, lived here all my life, and we've never been known as districts.
Thank you very
I
much.
just want to make mine, but add another thing to it.
Sure.
When you were speaking here, and you were talking about sidewalks, could you tell me that again?
Well, I think of sidewalks in built communities as sort of linear parks because they're public and so many people use them.
Are you talking about the sidewalks, like going through the residential areas where people are supposed to walk?
Yes.
They don't walk on them. How can we enforce this?
You mean that where do they walk instead of the road or?
No, they don't they walk in the street media.
Yes.
And they do it at night. And it's very dark up in my area in the northern precinct. And you can't see the people. They don't wear highlights. I don't know where our police are. Maybe you ought to think of doing something about that. Or why make us have sidewalks?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay,
Thank you. All right, anybody else wish to address council at this time? Keeping in mind that it is now an hour and 20 minutes into our session.
Michael Straw, 499 West Jefferson Street, apartment 507. I just have one question. It's just a question that maybe you can clarify. It's in regards to Veterans Square and Orange Street. You had mentioned last meeting that a week after that the parking along that area would be open and soon for Veterans Square. I understand that things can happen. I was just wondering if you could give some clarification as to when those may be open or if conversations occurred and it may take a little bit, time, but I was just wondering.
I did mention that at the last meeting was our information from the county at that time, that is what would happen. I did notice yesterday that the fence is still up. Jeff, do we have any update?
My understanding, Mr. Jeffrey's working with the county engineer and they're finalizing the E&S plan, and it's anticipated that they're going to move the fencing back soon, within the next week or two, and open up the 10 or 12 spaces along Orange Street.
And for those folks at home who don't know what ENS is, I don't know what ENS is.
Erosion and sedimentation.
Okay.
They're just finalizing that, according to Mr. Jeffrey.
All right, thank you.